All right, welcome to Friday Night Tactical. We are live, and we have Scott to my right, left. I'm flipped on the camera. And Stu, you may be muted down below. Make sure you unmute yourselves.
Yeah, it's always good to mute me most of
Now
the time.
we're into the stream. Say something, Stu.
Hello, testing 1, 2.
I can't hear you. Scott,
Oh,
I can hear him.
I cannot hear you.
Can't hear me? I can hear
Oh,
you.
I got you. I got you.
There we
No,
go.
this is a new streaming platform we're trying, so we may have some technical difficulties. I got you now. We are good to go. Welcome. Who do we have in chat? We've got 23 viewers. What's everyone up to? Who's playing ASL this weekend? And where are you from in the chat? Are we playing ASL this weekend, Scott? Probably not. You need to suddenly set up.
I can do that tomorrow. We can play Sunday.
Sunday, huh? Sunday.
Sunday.
You could eat it, but you won't like it.
But no, there's no way we are not singing. We are not singing. If Amy were here, she would sing for you all, but she's busy.
There you
She
go.
will not be able to moderate. We are moderating on our own today. We got Mike from Toledo, Edgar from, oh, they're rolling in now. Yeah, there's a little bit of delay. I have to remember that, and you guys in chat need to remember there's a little bit of a delay here.
Oh, some New York guys.
Albany. Oh, Albany, you're up late. 10 o'clock back there? John Payne's play testing one of his own, kind of playing. William from Queens.
All day.
Very nice.
All day, every
Very
day.
nice.
Oh my gosh.
Is anyone playing something other than ASL? Let me ask you that. Got Mississippi Gulf Coast, Don.
Oh, very nice.
10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? We're right here. We're right here. Robert, designing East Front scenario. Cool, cool. Rootin' Putin, Japanese lessons. Is that something you want or something you're reading about?
Is that language or PTO?
Yeah, yeah. Vlad, Manila, you're in the Philippines? Wow.
Oh yeah.
Oh, Japanese language. Cool.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, second front. Yeah,
Dave's
yeah.
playing second front. Yeah, I played a little bit today. I finally beat, what was it, Last Stand at the grain elevator today,
Oh, all right.
which is kind of a tough one. Stu, are you playing anything this weekend?
I don't know. With the weather around here, I might get called out for flood problems. So, I'd like to try to get something going. Maybe get some more second front going. I haven't played like in about a week and a half.
Yeah.
I kind of got busy with other stuff but yeah, I hope to get some stuff going. I wanted to get one of the solo games of Lost Opportunities, just to get that map out there of Drop Zone, and to see how that goes. I popped it out on, flipped it up and saw the map size, and yeah, it's pretty open. It looks pretty interesting. So I probably get that going, just for around the bend, instead, unless something comes up, but I doubt it.
Why, you, Scott? You playing any BCS? Play by email?
I did a log file earlier today, but no, I don't have any plans to play this weekend.
Scott's a big BCS fan, in case anyone didn't know. Don Fuller, I'm getting back in after losing most of my kit to Hurricane Katrina. Oh, that sucks.
Bummer.
Good that you're getting back in. Let me ask chat. I can't really tell. Is there anyone watching from... we're streaming to 3 platforms today. We're streaming to YouTube, Twitch, and Facebook. Is there anyone in chat watching that is not on YouTube? That's either on Facebook or Twitch. I'm just curious. Post up if you are.
What's your Twitch handle, Neil?
Mine?
Yeah.
ASL Academy.
Academy.
Yeah.
There it is.
I can check Twitch. Yeah, it's running on Twitch. I'm just wondering if anyone's actually watching it on Twitch. And if the chat works there. If someone types in a chat, if it'll show up.
Yep, Ruden's got it.
Test.
Yep, looks good.
Nice. It showed up. The Twitch. Hey, the Twitch logo even showed up. Very cool. Okay. Let's start. Let's before we jump into this. Well, let's do some updates. Stu, what do you have going on or coming up on your channel in the next week or two?
It's the next week or two. Not exactly sure, but I've been doing a lot of paperwork with the war tournament.
Oh yeah.
And it's looking pretty good. I think we had 11 completed games in February. That was the first month. We had a couple more guys sign on. And right now in my log of games, I think I have 17 games either completed or in session to be completed. And this is only the 1/3 of the way through the month. So it's heating up pretty good. Got lots of guys are popping in games, getting like 2 or 3 games going at the same time, and try to get those games completed to get their 5 victories. So it's getting hot and heavy. I mean, a lot more games are playing, so I'm excited.
Are we going to see any videos or AARs from that?
Yeah, that's the point. Yeah. So what we're going to do is I'm going to take a lot of guys are playing like the shorter scenarios, and so you'll see things like costly baptism, a lot of bounding fire stuff, pulling in flames, maybe even a couple longer ones. I think 2 teams are playing on the borderline, so it's a really lengthy scenario. And then again, we'll do that sort of thing like on Tactical Tuesday, but just with the ASL scenarios. And there'll be, like I say, there'll be a ton of plays, and it'll be interesting. I'm actually learning something. I played a Toten Zontag not too long ago, and I've been watching some of the guys' replays, And you know, there's some essentially dead zone setups that you kind of want to avoid, you know, based upon, you know, just the review of the games. It's like you might not want to sit up there anymore, which you would think initially you do. And so, you know, it's interesting so far. So it's coming along. And at the end of this month, it'll be good. I changed all the guys. I submitted everyone's results. Like again, at the end of February, their ASL player ratings adjusted slightly, and so now some players are have different players available to them in the tournament to play against. Again, it's a peer versus peer competition, and no shark in here for the most part until everyone gets to kind of the rating settled, and then they can really hammer it out. So, but most of the games are really look really competitive. Doesn't look like there's too many walkaways, so that's good to see. That's good to see.
I would like to take part in some of your stuff, but as you know, doing or playing ASL takes time, and running this channel and making
Yeah,
videos takes time.
yeah.
So I'm always working on something behind the scenes, so I don't really get an opportunity to play in some of your little mini tournaments sometimes, which is too bad. Maybe down the road.
Well, this one's lengthy. This is gonna be about 3 months. I
Yeah.
anticipate it to be 3 months, but yeah, it's you have to kind of keep up on your games because it'll probably take about 7 to 8 games for someone to actually initiate the end of the tournament and probably determine a winner. So, look at about if it stretches through March, it'll be 3 full months that people can play. But a lot of short scenarios. I mean, a lot of guys. I'll see plenty of guys start and finish a scenario one night. So,
That's
but
good.
yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
Short scenarios are good,
Yep.
especially for tournaments, obviously. Scott, what are we playing next? Do you remember? I sent you the setup file.
Buckley's block.
Buckley's block. Yeah.
Yeah. American Japanese.
Yes. And you took
Americans.
the Marine Corps. You had to think on that, didn't you?
No, I was
Which,
just trying to raise the anticipation.
which means I get the Japanese, which you know what's going to happen, right?
Banzai.
Banzai. Here they come. Banzai. So I think, yeah, we might kick that off Sunday and then have an AAR, I don't know, a couple of weeks from now for that.
It looks like one of those scenarios where a Banzai charge or two might work pretty good.
Yeah, trying to recall the terrain. There's not a lot of open ground. There's a lot of orchards, and the Japanese need to move across the board. So yeah, you can probably anticipate 1 or 2 bonsais from me. Just you don't know where and when.
Yeah.
As far as what's coming up on this channel, ASL Academy, there will be a giveaway video. I think I'm going to post that Monday. We hit 4,000 subs, which is awesome. Great. I have some stuff to give away. I talked about it in the last Friday Night Tactical. I had some stuff donated by Derek Ritter that I'm going to give away from Ritterkrieg. So big thumbs up to Derek, and make sure you frequent his store to order your ASL stuff. But I'm going to put out a video for the giveaway probably on Monday. Very easy. All you need to do is post a comment on the video and be a subscriber, and boom, you're entered to win free ASL. Other than that, I think I have another second front video. I recorded a bunch of mastering AFVs, second front, and I have another part that's coming. And Scott and I will have our AAR, and then I think I'm going to do a video, a boot camp video, about vehicle movement and vehicle states of movement, which kind of confuses a lot of players, right? Stop, non-stop, then motion. What do they mean, and where are they applicable? I think that'll help out some players. So that's what I have going for this channel in the next 2 to 3 weeks-ish or so. Okay. Someone had a question. It was William. You guys play Warfighter. I tried cooperative. Didn't play as well as solo. I'm not... Do you guys know what Warfighter is?
No,
Yeah.
not really.
I used to play it.
Okay. What is it?
It's a solo card game by DVG.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty good. It's just small. It's just like patrols and stuff. Small. You just build a team and you go out and try to complete missions.
There's some
Like
people.
tactical, like a squad level or something.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Sort of like up front. Similar. Not similar.
Does it have armor or is it just infantry or?
Yeah, it's got vehicles.
Uh,
Yeah, they have Europe, and then they came out with PTO, and you can any kind of pretty much any nation you want to play.
Wow.
Nice. I've never heard of it.
Yeah, it's fun. You pick a mission, right? And then you get so many points, and you can build your force, and yeah, there's a ton of replayability, and
The problem is,
it's fun.
you guys know, even the chat knows. Once you commit yourself to ASL, it's hard for me. I mean, Scott and I, you and I played BCS, and I would read the rules, and I had a hard time packing it in with the ASL rules, trying to find room.
Yeah.
Once you're really into ASL, it's not, at least in my brain, there's not enough room left to do all these other games.
Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I had plans to learn several other games like OCS and Line of Battle and this and that, but yeah, so far just BCS is the only one I've been able to learn. Yeah, like I say, ASL just takes a lot of dedication.
Takes a lot of CPU power.
Especially when they keep sending material out that we need to buy, right? We just keep picking more up.
I'll die before I play a fraction of it, but I keep collecting it because, I'm an addict. Drop Zone. Do you want to jump into it? Where do we want to start with Drop Zone? Do you want to start with doing a little historical thing or just jump into the rules?
Do historical. Yeah.
Do a little historical. Let's see. I have it here somewhere. There it is. Yes. I have some pictures. Guess I should share it. No, that's the wrong one. Share it. There it is. There it is. Let's see if I can rearrange this correctly. All right. D-Day, Normandy, June 6, 44. Scott, jump here anytime. Here with your historian hat. And
what do you need to know?
Well, can you give us just this is specifically Drop Zone Sainte-Mère-Église, right? It doesn't cover the actual airdrop, but it's right after the airdrop. Maybe you can tell us what happened before the actual beach landings at Utah.
Well, Sainte-Mère-Église was the primary objective of the 82nd Airborne because it was a major road junction. It kind of sat astride the highway from Cherbourg to Paris, which you can kind of see on your map there, I think. But yeah, and
it's right.
It was, yeah, and then the 101st dropped to the south of the 82nd. But the airborne, the idea was for the airborne to capture the ground west of Utah Beach and hold it.
Wow.
To the west of, so basically in between.
Well, yeah.
To the west of Utah Beach or the west of Sainte-Mère-Église?
Well, inland of Utah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there was a no man's land between the airborne and the beach. But yeah, there was river crossings, like the bridges over the Murderay. That was part of the 82nd's objective too.
These rivers aren't labeled. Is it this one? This area? Oop, jeez. That's only river I see. Okay. This isn't a super detailed map.
Yeah, it may not be on there. The river, I think, was in the 101st area, and then the Murderay was in the 82nd. But there was the bridges at Chef DuPont and Lafayette.
I think they're actually doing historical of that, called the the bridges or three
think so.
bridges, and they're gonna make it a pack or something, a historical pack, I think.
Yeah, I think they mentioned something about that, Lafayette and then
Mhm.
Chef DuPont. But there was also, I mean, there was, like Hill 30 was in there and Tim's Orchard and all that.
Right. But the 82nd Airborne primarily dropped right around here, right?
Yeah,
Or
just
or or
there.
or in between as well.
No, it was to the west of Sainte-Mère-Église. The northwest was the drop zones for the 82nd. Well,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Which is what this is what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
Let's jump to the next. Let me turn that off. This shows the actual map. Let me make it
Sweet.
bigger here. It shows the actual map and kind of the orientation, approximately the orientation. On the map, north is actually uh, along this axis, right? Like this. That's obviously not north, but they have to have I guess, a hex row definition for north that kind of works. It's close.
Well, yeah, the
And
whole peninsula sits kind of askew. It's not perfectly north or it's,
Yeah.
yeah, is there a north compass on the actual map? I didn't notice on this map.
Vlad wants to know if you could zoom in, Neil, on that.
Which part?
Probably the Sainte-Mère-Église part.
This one? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There you go.
So what I did here, I actually scaled down the drop zone map. That's approximately what it represents based on the scale at the bottom here.
Wow.
It's 3 miles long, the map is. So that's approximately the size in relation to this map and the land around Sainte-Mère-Église. Zoom in a little more. An approximation. Let's go to the map itself, since I mentioned. So the map is 3 miles long, arranged in probably the way you would actually play it. One person on one side of the table. It's just too long to have someone on one long end and the other. You can't reach anything if you lay it out. So it's 3 miles, approximately 3 miles wide, and over on the lower right there is a standard geo board for reference to show you
Mm.
how big the map is. So it's probably almost what 12-ish.
Yeah. Looks like 4x3.
Yeah, of the geo maps roughly. Yeah, about 4x3 from the looks of it.
That's cool.
Utah Beach up in this direction, and Cherbourg to the left, which is north in this direction. And right in the center here is Sainte-Mère-Église, Fallville, and I don't remember.
Neuville-la-Plaine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks. Yep.
That's
So,
pretty cool.
with that aside, and again, if you guys have questions in chat, post them up. And you guys, I'm kind of driving here, so if you guys monitoring chat see something, just pipe up and we'll get to it. Before we actually jump into the actual meat of the campaign game, let's talk about what a campaign game is. Let me ask this question here. Let me pop this up. Are you familiar with MMP-style campaign game mechanics? Anyone in chat? Anyone viewing? Go ahead and answer. We'll go over it in a nutshell after we talk about the 3 campaign games that are in here. So campaign game 1 is Together We Will Raise This Flag. It has 3 dates, and they're all on June 6th. There's a morning date, an afternoon date, and a night date, which means you will need night rules for campaign game 1, at least on the last date. And Tim asked, do any of the campaign game maps use just 1 or 2 maps? Yes, 2 maps. Campaign game 1 and 2 use basically 2 maps. Campaign game 3 uses the whole thing. And then campaign game 2 is Liberation Road. It's 3 or 4 campaign game days. One is optional, one day, and it takes place the day after. And the dates are dawn, mid-morning, which is optional, which means it may not actually happen. I think it's dependent on what the Americans decide to do. Then there's an afternoon and an evening, but there are no night rules. And then campaign game 3 is Kraus and Vandervoort, and it's basically a combined campaign game 1 and 2, and it uses the whole thing. So I think when the Vassal map is available, we're still waiting. We are going to do campaign game 3. Is that correct, Scott?
Yes.
We're just going to do it.
Go big or go home.
Yeah, I mean, you play the first half of campaign game 3, and you played campaign game 1, so you might as well just start it, and just chip away at it over time and play the whole thing, which is what we plan on doing. We're just waiting for the Vassal Elves to finish. Someone made the counters, so we just need the map now.
Oh,
I heard they were. I think I heard they were play testing the Vassal map.
That would be cool.
Was it Kurt Schilling? Somebody on Facebook. They were like, they had that, like they were checking it out to make sure everything worked right. I think as far as line of sight, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, right.
Let's see. What?
A massive paradrop.
Okay, yeah.
45 sticks.
Yeah, did I ask that question? Did it pop up?
Yeah, Tim's got one there.
Yeah, paradrops.
Yeah, I think so, Vlad. I think so.
There are no paradrops in this, which is, I'll get your guys' opinion on it. Well, let's just do it now. So there are no paradrops in this. Clearly, the initial part of D-Day that this module kind of details involved paradrops. Scott, do you think that it should have had paradrops? They would have been night paradrops.
No. Yeah, it would have been night. You would have spent, I don't know how many turns just trying to round up people and
Just
make your way to your objective. Yeah, wandering around. Yeah.
Right. What about you, Stu? That's a good point, Scott.
Yeah, with the openness of the map, and most people aren't going to be dropping into town, and with 537 range, what is that? 2 hexes. You can't even fire like 2 hexes within normal range, so you're probably not going to get shot at by anybody anyway. So it would just go through the mechanics of the paradrop. So I guess I'm okay with that. I mean, I love parachute drops because it's just the chaos and the randomness of it. But I really don't see, multiple platoons out in the middle of the bocage just shooting randomly, expecting something to happen. So unfortunately, that's not there. But I guess you could do it. I mean, what the hell?
The actual landing zones weren't on the map. They were, it was like I said, off to the northwest.
Yeah, and then they ventured in. Yeah.
Well, didn't some units actually land like right in Sainte-Mère-Église?
Yeah,
right
there was
right
like
in the square or whatever.
Yeah, like one stick, a Company F. Yeah, landed on the. Right
So this is why we have Scott.
I think it would have been
Couple
cool
guys-
for like a small section, like maybe 3 sticks just kind of drop in. I'm not sure the density of the units that are going to be in the game right now anyway, in terms of the campaigns, but it'd be cool just to have a random squad floating in somewhere.
Vlad, yeah, no paradrops. I just saw your question pop up.
Isn't there? I thought there was a glider landing though, or something.
Yeah, and we're gonna get to that. But
Okay.
let me ask you, Scott. What was the weather and visibility like on that night or early morning? Was it?
Well, I think the weather was good. It was.
Was it? So the night visibility range would have been okay, probably.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but still, they're probably spread all over. You probably would have spent a bunch of time wandering around, just trying to get back together. So yeah, maybe they made the right choice for just starting, gathered up, and actually they've pretty much already captured. I believe they've pretty much already captured Sainte-Mère-Église, where this starts, where the campaign game starts.
Okay.
Any more questions in chat? If not, we'll move on. Campaign game mechanics. I think I might have asked the question earlier. Who's familiar with campaign game mechanics? If not, and even if you are, we'll just go through it real quick. All MMP, or as far as I know, all MMP campaign games have this sort of mechanic. I call it MMP-style campaign game mechanics. So each campaign game has a date, which I kind of went over before. They're usually in the same day. Sometimes the dates can be spread over multiple days. So for instance, the campaign game one has 3 dates: morning, afternoon, night. And then so basically each date is a scenario, and each scenario lasts 5 to 8 turns, and it is variable. So beginning with turn 5, one of the players, I can't remember if it's the Americans or the Germans, it might be the Americans, or the attacker. Whoever's defined as the attacker rolls one die, one 6-sided. If it's a 1 on turn 5, the date ends. If it's a 3 on turn 6, I think it ends. If it's a 5 on turn 7, it ends, and on turn 8, it automatically ends.
Wow.
Or mutual agreement, you can both agree to end a turn or a date, a scenario.
Huh.
So it's you don't know what you're going to get. You don't know if you're going to get 5 turns or 8 turns. So you have to kind of adjust your how fast you're moving and how fast you're attacking if you're on the attack. But after each date, there's what's called a refit phase. And there are more steps to it than this, but it's generally composed of things like unit recovery. Let me make this a little bigger. Unit recovery, repair, recombining, etc. Determining setup areas for the next day, and that's the least favorite part for me, because you have to draw. You basically have to draw your control areas for both your sides, and it's dependent on strategic locations that you capture, which can be buildings and other things depending on the campaign game. And then you have to draw these zones, and if you get overlaps, they're called no man's land, and there can be a little bit confusing. I don't really like this part of it. Other than that part of it, the refit phase is fine. You're just kind of checking things off, right? Getting ready for the next part of the campaign game. And then there's a phase called escape and shift, meaning if you're in a no man's land, if you're kind of surrounded, like if I'm playing Scott and I have guys deep into his territory, but he has controlled strategic locations that surround me, I have to try to escape my units during the refit phase. And things can happen, like you cannot escape, you can take casualties, etc. Same with shift. Once you set up these control zones, if you want to shift to a different zone, you have to make a die roll for those units. You might want to say, I want to move these units over to this other zone to bolster it. You have to make a die roll to see if they actually are able to do it. They either can't do it, or they take casualties, or they're able to shift. These are the types of mechanics that happen in between. Or I think they can set up off board in an entry area. You can actually move them off the board, but then they have to re-enter instead of setting up in these different setup areas. And then there's replenishment and reinforcement and spending campaign purchase points. You'll get campaign purchase points depending on things that might have happened or depending on what side you're on. And then you buy units. So there's a lot of variability in campaign games on choices you have to make based on what's come before, and you want to preserve your units going forward as well. Then after you get through the refit phase, you basically play the next date, which might be the afternoon date, the new scenario. You play through it, and you end either on turn 5 through 8, then you do the refit phase, and you do that until the scenarios end, and one side meets the victory conditions or one side doesn't. The victory conditions usually apply to the entire campaign game, not one scenario. There's usually not date or scenario specific victory conditions. It's usually one large victory condition for the entire campaign game. So the campaign game mindset is completely different than playing a normal scenario. I like to call it live the fight another day, because you have to make choices with all of your units. How risky do you want to get, because you have to preserve those units for the next date. They're going to be fighting the next date, type of thing. So you when you play a regular scenario, you just kind of go, You know,
Yeah.
you go crazy. You just run stuff in the open or whatever just to try to capture the victory. You can't do that
Bonsai.
here. Yeah, you just kind of go lose your mind sometimes.
I think you guys need to send Vlad your end of day stuff so he could determine your setup areas for your next day. He seemed to be pretty experienced in the campaign games.
Yeah, when
Just
you
send
say
him
that, I
off.
missed it.
You get some help wanted or work wanted. Say, hey, you know, I can determine your perimeter zones. You know,
Yeah, wasn't
$5 per campaign date.
not a fan of that, but you know, we work through it. It's fine. It just involves sitting at a planning map and drawing, you know, perimeters and then getting with your opponent, which in my case is usually Scott, and kind of overlaying them and then arguing about the parts that don't match and
Right.
then figuring it out.
Negotiating. You need a civil engineer to resolve your fights.
Right. Tim said, this looks like a more manageable campaign game on the servers. Yeah, we were talking about that before the stream. We agree this is probably one of the more manageable and approachable campaign games.
Sort of like a decision on else graduated.
Yeah.
Because you guys played DAA, right? You guys finished that a couple years ago.
Yeah, that's.
Yep.
I mean, whether you play ASL or full ASL or Star Kit, Decision at Else is probably a really good introduction to campaign games because it's fairly, it's fairly simple. The rule set's a little less than full ASL, but it has all of this stuff. It has all the mechanics in it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Oh yeah.
Just don't play the Germans.
Speaking of, so I threw in. This was one of the control maps that we did for Decision at Else.
Oh, nice.
2-3 years ago, whatever it was. Yeah. So you see at all the buildings. I think the buildings were the only strategic locations. So there's rules on, I think within 2 hexes.
2 hexes, yeah.
Yeah, you control the territory 2 hexes away from a strategic location.
Huh.
So where the lines are close, there's overlap, right? If he controls this building and I control this building, our zones overlap. That's called a no man's land, right? And then these other zones are not controlled. So
Wow.
you kind of have to go through this process between each campaign game day. This is the part I didn't like.
How did you set that up? That looks pretty legit.
Well, this is just. I think I just scanned this.
Oh wow.
I mean, I took a photocopy of the planning map, and we just draw on it.
Okay. All right.
And then I just scanned it.
It looks pretty
just
cool.
for illustrative purposes. And then these zones represent setup areas for the next date. You can set up your units in these zones, or they have to remain in these zones, or if I want to shift from kneel one zone over to this zone, I have to make a roll to see if the shift is successful. That's what I was referring to before.
Oh, that's what the shifts are for separate zones, completely separate zones. Okay, gotcha.
If there's units in this zone, but I want to set them up over here the next date, I have to do a shift.
And you can take casualties for that? That's crazy.
Yeah, if you roll bad, you can take casualties.
That's not good. Now, could like the Germans shift into that small zone in the bottom? I'm going through your air territory. Does that have to be neutral?
Let's see over here.
Yeah, can you do like a shift between those two?
Guys, I think these guys would be called isolated.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone in chat can confirm. Yeah, it's been a few years since we played a campaign game. They're probably considered isolated, so he couldn't shift in there.
All right.
In fact, you might have had units in here when we played. He had to shift out probably, and there was probably like a negative modifier for shifting out of an isolated zone. I can't.
That's when you try to escape, right? When it's when you're isolated.
Oh, is that what that is?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Maybe it's escape when you're isolated like that.
Mm.
Yeah, Root and Putin says they would be isolated. Correct. Yeah, so there's a lot of cool stuff that actually happens with campaign games in between the stuff that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Wounded leaders can recover. Yeah, all that stuff. All the attrition you took, you check to see how well you recover from it, as well.
What about like immobilized vehicles? I mean, you get your wounded leaders. Big Superman. They pull the bullet out of his leg and wrap him back up, throw him back in the front.
Immobilized vehicles?
Like a Jeep or
I
something
think
like
you
that?
had to roll. I think you had to roll for them.
I know that vehicles with like broken guns could repair. I can't remember immobilized vehicles.
Okay. Yeah, because some games are like different, like full days, right? Like January 5th, January 6th, and in other campaign game days, it's like 2 hours later, you know. And so it's kind of interesting that they might use the. I don't know if they do, but they might use the same mechanic in terms of wounded leaders or heroes getting back into the fray and things like that. So, you know.
Yeah, I can't remember how mobilization works.
Okay.
Root and Putin, you have to roll for mobilization. Yeah, maybe you can repair it. I just don't recall.
Okay, that's cool.
And it may be a little bit different for every campaign game as well.
Yeah, different modifiers. Probably,
it might just
something like
depend on the action and the geography and all that.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
I'll have to check that out later.
What do we have up here? Oh, let me pop that back up. Getting used to the controls on this thing. Hopefully it's working out.
That looks good.
This is campaign game 1 in the morning. This is basically how they set up. So the Americans have already captured Sainte-Mère-Église. This is the morning of June 6th. So they've, as Scott said, I guess they've all gathered up during the evening and actually went in and taken it, and the Germans are basically counterattacking. And the things you have to control for campaign game 1 are, there's this large building. I can't read it because this map is not very high res.
Right.
Yeah, I can't read what it is. Or they have to put firepower on this certain amount of firepower on this road hex as well. So they have to capture the building and put firepower on the road hex. The Germans do. And the Americans get reinforcements behind the Germans on turn 4. That's the morning. And then Scott, here you go. You're asking about glider landings. There are no paradrops, but there is a glider landing. So this is the afternoon. There's going to be fighting all through here, obviously, right? From the morning, right? That's where all the action's going to be happening. Germans get reinforcements on turn 1 right away, and then American gliders, 8 of them, loaded up, land on turn 5 over on this zone. So this looks like a really chaotic campaign game. You got units coming in from all kinds of different sides, different ways, and there's just gonna be a bunch of fighting going actually probably both directions. Trying to secure, either hold Sainte-Mère-Église or recapture it, depending on what side you're on.
So you think it turns into like a little mini red barricades right there in Sainte-Mère-Église instead of like a whole 4-foot map? You got like a 4-inch map.
Yeah, I think all the fighting is going to concentrate, kind of like this, like this.
Yeah.
towards the center. Yeah.
Very cool.
And then the last date for campaign game 1 is night. So night visibility range is 3. So all the fighting is going to be at night. Probably predominantly in here. Maybe some over here. And,
Don's got a question. Are the glider units more of the 82nd? I don't know how to click on that thing.
Yeah, they were.
I got it.
I can't remember the unit name, but yeah.
But they were they associated with the 82nd?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
They were supposed to be, the gliders were supposed to be bringing in more anti-tank guns and anti-aircraft guns and
more support equipment, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Were there any vehicles coming in on gliders, or did all the vehicles mainly come from Utah?
Would have been just Jeeps, if anything, but yeah.
I think there are some Jeeps in here in the orders of battle.
All those 57s
pull
around.
the guns around.
Yeah.
So
on those roads.
That's it for campaign game 1 in a nutshell. You have to capture. Americans have to hold Sainte-Mère-Église. Germans have to capture this building and put down a certain number of firepower and be within a certain number of hexes, I believe, of this road section here for campaign game 1. Campaign game 2 is called Liberation Road, and it starts the next day at dawn. And in this one, I guess they assume the Americans still have control at the beginning, and the Americans want to push north. Left is north here, so they have to control that building, whatever it's called, I can't remember, and they have to push 30 exit victory points off the board in this direction, off of this edge.
Wow.
And the Germans are counterattacking here. So that's the beginning of campaign game 2.
Wow.
The dawn, the mid-morning is optional. I believe if the Americans choose not to attack, there is no campaign game or date 2. You just skip it, or maybe there's some special scenario rules may say what you have to do. Maybe something special happens, but there's no real scenario, as I recall.
And it's kind of funny that you mentioned earlier, Neil, that the map, simply because of the way the size of the map, it's kind of like playing on Vassal. You're like side by side instead of like, you know, you can't be on, I'm on this side, you're on that side because of the length of the map on some of these scenarios.
Right. Yeah. This, I mean, like most campaign games, I think this lends itself to being played on Vassal. That's why we're waiting.
Yeah, it's not giant. You know, you don't have a, you know,
yeah,
gigantic different thing. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense. That'd be cool.
Everybody
go out and buy your 54-inch monitors.
or 50-foot table, one of the two.
Yeah.
Campaign game.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Clearance of 82-inch monitors, 82-inch
Yeah.
TVs.
So date 3 is the afternoon. Maybe it's 4. No, 2 is mid-morning. 3 is afternoon. So all the fighting is going to be raging, you know, in this area. I believe this is a level 1. I couldn't tell if this was depression or elevation.
Nah, it's elevation. Yeah,
Yeah,
you get that right.
It's elevation after I thought about it and looked at it a little bit more. And then there's German reinforcements coming in from the north. So the Americans
that's where Scott's poured his coffee on their map.
Yeah. So the Americans are going to keep trying to push to the left, to the north, and the Germans are going to push it, coming in from the north on not turn, but date 3. And then date 4, the last one is evening. Again, the Americans I think they have to start behind this line. I can't remember why I put that there. I think they have to set up behind that line. But I wonder what happens if they push further than that. I can't recall. And then they can reinforcements come in on the east and south edge, Americans, but they're still continuing to push north to meet the victory point conditions. So that's campaign game 1 that I showed you previously. That this is campaign game 2. I didn't do a campaign game 3 summary because it's basically campaign game 1 and 2 combined, with a few differences, I think, in between, but it's basically they've mashed them together, and there's some maybe special scenario rules that come into play.
Cool.
Yep.
Cool.
Are there any more questions that I missed?
Vlad wants to know if you get any reinforcements at all in the CG.
Yeah. So you get both in this campaign game. You get, in some dates, you actually get reinforcements assigned to you. They're actually specified. You also get campaign purchase points, which you can use to buy units.
Okay, that's cool.
I can show that here. I think that's it for the maps. That's all the maps we have. Let's look at the SSRs. Where are we at? We're at 747. I think we're doing pretty good.
Yep.
The Sturm units. You were wondering about that, Stu. You have some comments about the Sturm?
I just, the only thing I have, unfortunately, I don't have a ton of positive comments, but it it just seems, I don't know. Again, I'm not a big historian. You guys are much more knowledgeable than I am, but it just seems like it's almost like we have like a half a sheet of counters just to be token counters to be placed in there. And the Sturm, I mean, everyone loves the new German unit, I guess. I mean, but good Lord, I'd rather have another American unit than another German unit. I mean, that's another slot in your box that you gotta buy. Yeah. So
Yeah, I'd keep these separate in the
yeah.
box of the
So,
mods.
but
Well, there's a
537s are great. It makes them against. Let's see it. So against the 537 against the 747 in close combat, the 747 will only be 1-to-1 against them. So that is a huge difference in CC versus the 537s. That's I mean, by a half firepower, they avoid the 3-to-2, and you know, I think that's a big deal because that's one of the biggest strengths the Americans have. Even their 666s in close combat with your standard 4 firepower squad, they're all 3-to-2.
well,
So
what's the other thing? This bonus the 537 adds.
I don't know. Maybe they're good cow herders. I don't know.
We'll get to the cows. We will get to the cows. No,
They speak cow. They
no. I actually did a tactical tip on this a while ago. They have an underscored 5.
Oh yeah, yep. Assault
So-
fire. Yeah.
Yeah. So their firepower after moving is basically identical to if they just sat
Yep.
and fired.
Yep.
Right. Unless you have a stack of 3, right?
Right.
Moving
Right.
around, which you're probably not going to be doing, right? So you're going to have, if you fired 1 or 2 squads in prep fire, you're going to have 4 firepower or 8, right? Rounding down. If you
Right.
move them, you're going to have 4 or 8. So given these 537's assault fire is also a huge advantage as opposed to using the standard, I don't know, 467s, which have good range, obviously, but they
Yeah.
don't have assault. I don't think they have assault fire.
Yeah, I love the assault fire. I mean, the 548s. I mean, I think that's the one good representation of the 537. Reduction of range. You still have spray fire. Again, most of the terrain will hopefully be bocage. You know, and so that's +2 right there. So the extra firepower. But the 7 morale, I think, is the real big influencer. It's not like they're 548s, so they really can't stand toe-to-2 a lot. The Americans will still over firepower them, and hopefully put the hurt on the Germans.
Yeah, there is a note, design note, footnote 1, that explains their design decision of doing 537. And I read it, and I can't recall, and I don't want to spend time reading through it again. But if you're curious why they use 537s, they answer it in footnote 1.
Yeah.
Let's see, bocage and gaps. Okay, I found this one interesting. All hedges are bocage. Why didn't they use bocage graphics on the map?
Right. Right.
They use hedge graphics. Well, they're all bocage.
Right. It doesn't
Why
make any
didn't they-
sense.
Why did they use hedges instead of bocage? I thought that was strange. And then they put in an SSR that says they're all bocage.
Yeah, it's
I don't know what happened there, but
pointless. Pointless.
I don't know.
You know, because I mean, even a Vassal, right? You do the Vassal transformation. That's bocage. You see it. You see like the little brown mound on it, and the trees are coming up. It's pretty badass. And they're pretty thick. So yeah.
Yeah, maybe it was difficult for them to do. I have no idea. I just noticed that why they're hedges, but then they call out bocage. I think these next ones have to do. Well, there's some weird road situations. David Garvin was right, by the way, on the smoke question.
I like that it has a reference. Gaps in bocage hex sides are gaps, and it has references to B9, B9.5, and then it has like 4 or 5 lines. They could have just added the description of actually what the gaps do for you instead of having to reference it. So anyway, look, say
I didn't even notice the gaps.
yeah. Hey, that's right. And, David says that once we play it on Vassal, you'll have your bocage right there, baby. At least it better work, right, David?
Well, if they put transformations in.
Oh
I
God,
don't know if they will.
Oh God, they better. It should come default right there. That's a good idea, Neil. You should get a hold of the Vassal elves and make sure it's just defaulted that way.
I don't have that power.
You do. You unleash the power of Grayskull.
Skeletor. Oh man. Yeah. So there's
That's
some
why we hide
rules.
Scott.
Yeah, Scott, can you get on that, please?
Yeah,
We need
right away.
We need
I'm on it.
bocage, not hedges. Then there's some rules.
I don't care what it has. I just want a map.
Yeah, we'll take a map, even if it has hedges on it. That's fine. So some rules for some funky roads that run right next to buildings.
Street fighting.
Yeah,
Yeah,
street fighting
yeah,
because there's
street
some
fighting.
really close roads to buildings. Yeah.
I did like the village square rule. I gotta be honest with you. I mean, I'm Mr. Negative Nancy over here, but the
What
village
was
square
it?
rule, it's like if like you've got like your tanks or jeeps or crap like that, you don't pay the penalty of driving through the hex because it's like the whole damn hex is a road. So at least that's what I interpreted from it. There's no additional MP cost for vehicles or wrecks that are in a hex. So that's kind of cool. I kind of like that little bling to the rule where you just everybody could drive through there, no penalties. So, not that it'll be a big deal, but I think it's kind of it makes sense. You know, that's one of the things that makes sense.
Then
And the
there's a
build
rule.
the building road one is also kind of nice. The one thing I didn't like about the building road, again, I think it makes a little more sense. Is the I don't know. I'd like to say the consistency of like narrow roads and things like that, or bypassing, or the way they were describing it. You know, and of course I looked up the narrow roads in the original rule book, and well, like in normal bypass, like the vehicles, you know, there's got to be a certain amount of space for your vehicle to go by in the normal rigmarole of an ASL game, and it looks like the narrow roads that they don't really care. There could be, you know, there could be a sidewalk and your King Tiger can, you know, be on that road, on that thing. So, for me, I like to see kind of consistency, but I guess if you just do campaign games, you're kind of used to that already. So that's just something stupidly minor. But again, I just like there's a lot of things that people can get confused and forget and stuff like that, and for me, that would be something that I'd have to try to remember and play more often. I'd have to be more experienced and adept at narrow roads and all these campaign games. But that's just me. But otherwise, it looked pretty cool. And that I'm not a big fan of either. The zigzaggy road and the irrigation. Yeah, I'm sorry, so, but it just seems kind of weird. I was looking through the red barricades rules, and you know how they have the rail lines are just straight, right, and just kind of runs along the hex sides, even the zigzags, and it says just treat them as walls, and it's like I'm not sure why they couldn't kind of done the same sort of thing here and treat them as walls. I don't know. I don't know. It just seems again another variation from the norm, and you know people have difficulty enough with bocage blocking lines of sight along the sides and things like that, and this one allows you to see down the side of a bocage, but they have to be moving or routing, and so I think that could be kind of confusing, especially with the whole battle going on. I would forget that all day long. That's all there is to it. But I understand the limitations they have on the hex grid and all that other crap, but
That's why they did it, I guess.
yeah,
As far
but
as
it's
I know.
just I mean they don't have to their hedges or their bocage doesn't have to follow the hex sides, in my opinion, especially if it's on a Hazel map, right? You don't have to worry about anything else. If you play in this one, you're playing drop zone, right? So the rules are isolated to drop zone, and hell, you can go hog wild on it, you know, and just really change the map up the way you really want to, and
Well,
but
Bocage that has to follow hex sides, right? That's the whole way wall advantage works, declaring wall advantage. I don't know how you would do it otherwise.
right. Well, if you look at the rail lines, like because I looked it up, it's like holy shit, they already have this, and that's from God, I don't even know the original name of it. Red Barricades. The Red Barricades has got like the rail lines going down, and they're straight. Those are straight. They don't go zigzaggy, and it says treat them as walls. And so it's
Oh,
like, whoa.
you mean it runs down a hex spine and then is that what you mean?
Well, it's sort of like if that
Like
were yeah, it's like the rail line would be straight, but it's along the side of the hexes. Yeah, just like
like
that.
that? Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then like obviously if your fire is crossing that hex side, crossing the thingy, then it's a wall. It's sort of like they like Hatton and Flames, that stupid rail line that's a hillock. You know, it's the same sort of concept, but a little more simpler, and it looks clean. To be honest with you, it looks clean to me. But again, that's just me. I mean,
Yeah.
I like pretty maps, and I think it would be. It's not that hard to understand. I mean, if you had, it's sort of like, you know, if you've got half orchards, right? If you got a half orchard, and you have to understand that the hindrance only applies on that half side, depending on where the fire is coming from. You already have the concept in the game. It's not like you're introducing a new concept. But
Yeah, but it's. I mean, it's not. The rule section isn't long. It's not that complicated.
no, it's not.
But
Yeah,
it is what it is.
yeah.
Let's move on. I want to get to the cows.
Moo.
Irrigation ditches. They're a little bit like polder, as if I recall, but they're not. They're similar to polder, I guess, from decision announced. Double roadblock. I think they introduced double roadblock just to be able to block this zigzaggy road. Really. Thoughts? Nothing.
They could have just used 2 roadblocks.
Two road, because a roadblock, there's nothing special about it. It's just a
Yeah,
double roadblock.
yeah. You could destroy one, and then
Yeah.
you just have to put a regular
So,
roadblock there.
yeah.
So, but hey, it's a fancy looking counter, which
Yeah.
you know, it's cool. It's a good concept. You know, I like the zigzag, but yeah, 2 roadblocks do exactly the same thing.
There's nothing to the rule. It's just
Yeah.
two
I think
hex
what it
signs.
does, I think the counter is maybe because there's no road on that bottom hex side, the bottom hex going, and so technically you can't put the road
Yeah,
there,
yeah.
and so that's kind of what it's for, which is cool. I'm fine with that.
That's
No
fine.
problem.
Okay, cows. Okay, David says, good thing no King Tigers fought against Americans in Normandy. Yeah. I read the cow rule, and it actually made me a little sad.
All right.
Yeah.
It's like, and maybe Scott, from your readings, maybe you can. Did you read the cow rules, and is it kind of accurate with what happened?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, it as far as I know, the only cow action was
Cow action.
Hello.
was morning of June 6th. It was south of Sainte-Mère-Église. The Germans came up from Fauxville, and they pushed the cows up in front of them. That's, as far as I know, that was the only time the cows were involved.
I'll be doing that.
You know, when I was reading the cow rules, what thing came to mind was like a Monty Python skit, and they're like grabbing like the pieces of like brush, and they're walking down the road trying to be concealed and stuff like that. That's just it's
Okay.
it's
Well, I wanna
just
know-
a mobile hindrance that your mobile TEM you're hanging around.
So
why didn't the Germans dress up in cow suits?
I know, right?
And then,
blend in like a cartoon,
Yeah.
like the coyote wearing a sheep suit.
Suits. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's kind of sad too. I was reading, it's like, yeah,
I
the
mean,
trail breaks and stuff like that.
that's
although-
what happened, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's kind of brutal.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, in a nutshell, which is my favorite word when I try to summarize ASL things, is the two things that stood out to me is the Germans can herd the cows, and a cow counter represents like a herd, not like a cow or two. It's a whole herd.
Oh crap.
So they can be blended in with the herd, and I believe it negates moving in the open. It's a hindrance, and it's +1 TEM.
Yeah.
And if they get fired on, if they take a casualty result or a KIA, it comes out of the cows first.
Yeah, it's pretty
Pretty
crazy.
much, pretty much. So you can kill cows instead of your units.
I hope nobody in the ASL community is a member of PETA, because they're probably going to have complaints about this.
It gets better.
Oh
It gets better.
yeah, right. Okay,
You
I'm sorry.
Minefield clearance. You can herd them into a minefield and blow them up. You clear a
I would
minefield.
never do that.
Or discover
I
a
would never do
minefield.
Is there enough heat generated
Man.
by an exploding mine to cook the meat?
So yeah, I read the cow rules the other night, and I'm like, wow, this is kind of depressing. Then you flip it over to the dead cow side, and it's
Yeah,
it's
exactly. Are they steaming?
So-
Are they steaming, or is that just?
No, I think it's just sticks.
But I gotta
Vegetation.
say, I gotta tell you, for as much shit that Critical Hit gets, they had cows before MMP, and they were
What?
faster.
Really? What were they in? I mean,
They were in like Mabatang or something like that.
huh.
It's they're carousels. But they did exactly the same thing. And the other thing did is they reduced the firepower of the minefield. They literally cleared the minefield out for you.
Absorbed it.
Yeah, it was kind of weird. The rules are still kind of like jerky because Critical Hit, but the concept is there. And I honestly literally bought that module simply for the cows.
Just for the
So
cows. So yeah, you can use cows. The Germans, I don't. Can the Americans? I think the Americans can. You have to like.
yeah,
They're treated a
Mhm.
little bit like prisoners. I think you have to
yeah.
like possess them and move around with them.
Yeah.
If you don't possess them, they don't move with you. But I think the Americans can grab them too. So I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, people are making jokes about it, and we're still kind of joking about it, but it's a little morbid, right? You
Yeah.
use them as bullet sponges, and then you blow them up in minefields. It's kind of morbid.
It did say that.
Yeah,
It
and then
did
you have
say
a
that there
barbecue
were
in the
no
evening.
minefields in the game though, which is kind of odd to me.
Are
So
there? I don't know. I haven't
it
looked at like
No,
all
there's
the
no
order of
mines.
battle. There's
yeah,
no
it says
mine.
there's no minefields in the game. It's like,
Yep,
well,
those are mines.
Maybe they put it in for so people can use them in other scenarios.
Yeah, it said something about yeah, for
okay,
future or for
Yeah,
other games.
yeah,
right.
scary. I need more. I need Jersey cows, Holsteins. Yeah, these are Holsteins on there. So
Wardrobe asks, are there paradrop scenarios in this pack, or do the scenarios all take place after the drops? There are no paradrops in the campaign game. I can't speak to the actual scenarios. Do you guys know the
I don't
individual
think so.
scenarios if there are any
I didn't see
paradrops?
any. I honestly didn't see any.
The campaign games take place after the everyone's landed and kind of gathered up, but there may be paradrops in the scenarios. I'm not sure.
Yeah, let me flip through those real quick. I didn't see any.
That's it. That's it for the special scenario rules. Then there's the beginning of the campaign game section. All the definitions on refit phase, setup area. Snipers. You get 2 sniper counters in Sainte-Mère-Église. So
If I could have 100 sniper counters, it wouldn't do me any good.
with a sand of 7.
And they all activate at the same time.
But I think you have 2 sniper counters, but when you get a sniper activation, you randomly roll to see which one gets activated. But it's kind of have multiple snipers that are spread out that you can still only take 1 sniper action if it gets activated.
I think I didn't see any. I just thumbed through the scenarios. I didn't see any parachute drops. The one thing about the scenarios, though, I did notice is that, with the exception of like 2 or 3, they seemed pretty low density, nice tight infighting, sort of like the old paratrooper scenarios where you have like 8 guys per side. The Lost Opportunities does have 18 German squads, but 8 of those are conscripts, so they're moving pretty damn slow, especially Bocage. And but they look pretty playable in terms of time and speed because there's not a lot of vehicles involved in most of them, or just on one side. So I think you can, at least the scenarios look to be one afternoon games if you guys do some face to face, which is be cool.
Did I miss any questions?
Yeah, wardrobe. They are mostly small. I mean, like the map. I was checking out the Lost Opportunities one. The map, compared to the ASL scenario in Paratrooper, the map is like wider versus long in Lost Opportunities, and it's really different in terms of what it's doing. It's just kind of like repeating for the title, but yeah, they're pretty small. They look pretty tight because your guys are going to be spread out. The density of units is going to be hopefully manageable. I'm not a big, 3 stacks of guys on ground, first and second level type of dude. So I avoid those games like the plague.
For me, I thought that was pretty cool that they took previously published scenarios and converted them to the historical map.
Yeah, that's cool.
Neat.
That's cool.
Yep, nice addition. Here's the full refit phase sequence that I kind of boiled down to a few bullets. It's much more lengthy, and then here's you get into the tables of things like escape tables, trying to escape from isolation, I believe. Whether you're a vehicle or infantry, uh, modifiers, shifting, shift to safety, no shift, shifted with possible casualties, or you can be eliminated if you roll a greater than or equal to 12 with modifiers. So yeah, you could try to shift. You could potentially take some casualties. And I don't think so. Here's the first campaign game, and you can see the initial orders of battle. There's not a lot of armor in this. There's some, but it's not an armor or vehicle heavy campaign
Right.
game, which is kind of nice. Which to me, that means it's probably going to move fairly quickly. Vehicles always slow down play.
I was looking at some of the maps too, and it seemed like most of the maps, the bocage, like farmlands or whatever like that, are pretty reasonable in terms of like jumping over the bocage and CXing. You can actually make it to the other wall instead of getting stuck out in the open. So if you wanted to hunt down those tanks, I think you can kind of get around to them just like you can like in a lot of the scenarios that you guys play. You can kind of the tanks aren't don't have a great time. They can be attacked and destroyed. I think pretty easily.
I got some screenshots up. You can kind of see the countryside
Yeah,
and the town.
the zigzag road.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. This is just to show you. This is a campaign purchase point table for the Americans and the Germans. So you can buy things like leaders, support weapons, vehicles. In this case, jeeps and anti-tank guns. And then you can get special. You can get leaders, squads, roadblock, concealment. Same with the Germans. So there's a lot of variability when you play a campaign game to decide what you want to do on the next date going forward.
Yeah, you got to have that variability.
Yep. Campaign games are not static scenarios. They're very dynamic because, like I said at the beginning, live the fight another day. You could have a really crappy morning, come out of it, do your refit, spend some points judiciously on what you need, and jump in the next day, reset up, and you're right back in the fight.
Now, in terms of the campaign game, like you say, the purchases deal, is there like one cookie cutter strategy, like just purchase? If you don't purchase like two companies of infantry, you're just going to lose that day, sort of, locked into buying that sort of crap, you know,
That's the tricky part.
you
Yeah,
know,
I
I
don't
mean,
think
because
there's
you
an
could
answer for
like
that.
really, scooch the pooch on that one there if you don't, because if you want to try something wild and wacky, like I do sometimes, are you just going to instantly lose? Pretty much,
Uh,
that would be
no,
disappointing.
I don't think you're going to instantly lose because you don't know if the session or date's going to last 5 to 8 turns. You don't know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You could find yourself in kind of a world of hurt that that you didn't spend properly, so you don't push as hard, and you say, okay, I'm just going to set up for the next date, which you can do, right? You can, if you're playing the morning date and you're like, things aren't going well, I should have bought something
Yeah.
else. You can try to position your units to get ready for the next date, right? And buying something different or something that'll help you during that date. So I think it's kind of hard to answer that question.
And I think like you touched on it earlier on the on your schematic of the campaign game, where if you think you've screwed the pooch, like, oh shit, all of his guys are on the right hand side, then like you say, you just pull back, preserve those forces, lose that two or three bocage fields, and just set up for the next day. Just automatically just pull back and go defensive. I don't know. Again, I haven't played a campaign
Yeah.
game, but you can't like just leave them on the front line. Oh, I'm gonna fight till I die because the scenario is gonna be over. But no, it
You
doesn't
you
matter.
you can. I remember when we played Decision Announced, um, there was a rule, and it may be in this one, where depending on your casualties from the previous day, you're able to recover some units. So if you lose a bunch,
Oh, right. Okay.
you're able to recover some. You like get replenished basically. And if you do the math right and you keep track of it right, at the end of the day, you can say, oh, okay, if I lose one more squad, I get the next replenishment on the table. I'll get that a squad back. So if I lose
Okay.
a squad at the end, it won't really matter.
Okay.
And you'll do something like rush down the road to grab that building to be a strategic location to get your setup area a little bit bigger for the next date. You
Right.
can do that. I don't know if that's in drop zone, but it was in decision at L. Sometimes at the end of decision at L's, I think a few times I might have done something a little crazy just because I knew I'd get a
To
squad
get that
back.
building. Yeah,
Yeah,
to get
just
that
to
building.
try to push a little further right at the end.
And it'd be worth it, right? Even if you lost the squad, the attempt to get that extra building again to give you extra 3 or 4 hexes of your setup area
Yeah,
would be worth it. Yeah.
possibly. Yeah, you
So
have to
it
make
kind of still
those
has
kind of
that.
decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it. This is just all the details for each of the campaign games. Units you start with, units you buy for each date, etc. I'm not going to go through all that. I think we've come to the end of Drop Zone Sainte-Mère-Église.
No, the beginning, because we
Oh,
need
it
to see
is.
your
Yes.
campaign game.
Yeah,
This is just the beginning.
it is the beginning, which is good for us because Scott and I have been waiting for this. We are going to play it, start it as soon
Yeah,
as
you guys been chatting about this for like a long time.
the Vassal Mat comes out. We're gonna kick it off. So I'm sure you'll see some AARs or summaries or videos
Yeah.
about this down the road.
Yeah, very cool. Yeah, David makes a good point. All the guys are reading his comment about you have to ask yourself, do I want to lose the terrain, the men, or just the terrain? Terrain and the men, or just the terrain?
Yeah, let me pop that
Yeah,
up.
that's
Yep.
huge. Yeah. So when you have experience like David and Vlad in these campaign games, they already know all those answers. I have none. I just have a tendency just to screw things up.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak for Scott, but and you can chime in afterwards. But playing a campaign game is completely different than playing a regular scenario. The mindset you need to know it's a long, extended battle with multiple phases and different units you can buy once you get your starting units. You have to change the way you actually play the game and approach it.
Yeah,
Any
totally. No,
any key
it's different.
strategy you
Like,
guys use? Any key strategies you guys use in a campaign that you do not see? I mean, other than what we've just discussed, any real like something that you wouldn't think of normally? That if I had known that, it's like, oh, I would have done a lot better. Like, I mean, some simple
well,
thing, not complex, but just like,
no, not really. I mean, but as far as like compared to a regular game of ASL, even whether you're attacking and defending, you can always try to do something like crazy to try and win. But in a campaign game, like playing the Germans in Elst, I think I may have had one attack day, right? But I don't think I ever used it. But it was never like you didn't want to do anything stupid. You couldn't stop the British. You're just trying to slow them down. So I mean, it plays totally different.
okay,
Yeah, from the German perspective, yeah, on that side, you couldn't really take a lot of risks. The British could because they had so many units.
wow,
Yeah.
yeah, just play your role, right? Play your role, and then stick with the game plan and see what happens.
Yeah, but when you're starting, when you play a regular scenario, within a turn, you kind of get a feel of how it's going to play, right?
Yeah,
Depending on the size of the scenario. You play one turn in a campaign game, you have no idea what's happening the next date. So it takes a long time for you to get the feel of how it's going to go, the flow and stuff in a campaign game versus a regular scenario. It's playing a campaign game is a time commitment. I forget how much we estimated how long it took us to play Decision at Else, and it was what was it?
50 some hours.
There were five. Were there 5 dates or no? There were 6 dates. 5 to 8 turns each, so 30
wow,
to 48 turns at a campaign game scale. And Scott and I aren't the speediest of players, and it's a significant time commitment. And yeah, you have to be into it. It was fun. So I'm looking. Well, I thought it was fun. Scott kind of thought it was torture, but decision
No,
at else.
it was fun.
56 hours of torture.
Yeah.
It's not something. Campaign game isn't something that I would choose to play all the time, but
Right.
yeah, I highly recommend if you're into ASL, you need to play a campaign game at least once to get the experience because it's completely different.
Very cool. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I've got to get it. I've got to put it on there. Or just watch your guys' game and live through your experience.
Well, I mean, us three can barely coordinate playing a regular 3-player scenario. I don't know if we could coordinate playing a full.
No, I
campaign
mean, I would just watch your replay of the
Yeah,
campaign
no,
game.
but I
The
know
decision
you
at else.
you and I talked about doing a multiplayer campaign game at one time, and
Yeah, that would
just
be
trying to
difficult.
coordinate it. Yeah.
As long as you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning, no problem.
Yeah, you send me Discord messages at like 3. I'm like, what are you doing up?
That's what happens. You know the life. You're retired. I got to get this shit done after hours.
Yeah, but I get up at 6 o'clock in the morning.
I go to bed
Even-
about 6 o'clock in the morning.
Jeez.
On the weekends.
How?
I don't know.
Oh man.
Diet Pepsi.
Yeah.
Pepsi.
Stalking
Stu
Diet
and
Pepsi.
Stu and I played Combat Commander one time, and I think we got done with it about 1 o'clock in the morning, and I was like,
Yeah, you were zoned. You were
beyond
zombified.
trashed. But I think Stu was just getting warmed up. He was just
Yeah.
ready to go.
Ready to do another one?
Stacking games, Scott. Let's go. Sit up.
Scott turned into a pumpkin.
Yeah.
I could beat a pumpkin. I think he beat me at that game, so I needed him to be a pumpkin. So
Root and Putin says, me and 3 buddies are playing SAF campaign game 3. 3 weeks in, it's still only on turn. What's SAF? Root and Putin. You guys know? SAF.
Maybe he meant SMF
Uh,
or
yeah,
I don't
campaign
know.
games are a slow, kind of have to nibble away at it.
Yeah.
Oh, Manila. Okay. Sword and Fire. Yeah.
yeah.
Got it. Cool. Yeah. Do you guys have any other comments about Drop Zone?
I'm looking forward to playing the scenarios and watching you guys get that campaign game going.
I'm kind of interested to see how it plays, because I mean, historically, I'm sure it's all well balanced and everything. I mean, historically, the biggest attack was like on June 7th, and there was 2 platoons of D Company held up 2 battalions of Germans and a battalion of assault vehicles.
Wow. See how that plays out.
Yeah.
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 No, I don't think it'll play out like they did in history. I think that's when you pull the David Garvin, you just give him all the territory.
Yeah, it'll be interesting.
And you buy the 150 OBA.
Yeah. We I don't know, it'll probably take us. How long did it take us to play Decision at Else? 2 months? But that was the height of COVID.
6 weeks. Yeah.
That was COVID lockdown, the height of COVID. I don't know. This will probably take us, I'm guessing, a few months, maybe. Probably take a break.
Well, I don't.
now and then.
Yeah. There's not a ton of units. It's going to be play quicker probably than Decision at Elst.
Think so?
Yeah.
You're not going to have the
Yeah.
armor, right? The decision else had like, what, 10 Shermans? Or
Yeah, I
some
had a
crap
bunch
like
of
that?
Yeah.
They all died, but
Yeah.
I had a bunch of Shermans. Panthers, I ate them for breakfast.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Ouch. Ouch.
Yeah.
And you don't have cows to hide behind. So, I mean, what are the British going to do, right? They can't do anything about the cows.
I'm looking forward to it, but also not looking forward to using the cows because I'm playing the Germans. I already know that.
Let them go. Let them go. Let them free.
No,
Let
I'm
them-
going to use them, but I'm going to lament over their corpses.
No. And eat
They're
well that
cardboard
night.
corpses.
Yeah.
Avoid the 5.56 ammo that's going to be embedded in the cows then when you're picking them up.
Jeez. All right, we're at hour and 25. This went longer than I thought. Any questions or comments in chat? I'll try to pop them up on the video as they come up. If not, we'll start closing it down. I don't know. Do you guys have any ideas for the next Friday Night Tactical, or anyone in chat? Do you have any ideas that you want us to gab about in the next Friday Night Tactical? I have an idea, but I'm gonna see what you guys say.
Okay. Nothing off the top of my head right now. I like this. This was really enjoyable and enlightening. Forgotten War Review.
Anything, Scott? Root Putin says Forgotten War Review. Ooh, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking.
Okay. Well, I have an idea. You want to hear it?
Yes.
Okay. Something I've been thinking about. And actually, thanks for stopping in, David. Something I've been working on for actually a long time. I actually started making some slides, some graphics for it. I was or am going to make a video series calling it Demystifying ASL or whatever. ASL seems to have this stigma about it that it's impossible to learn, which is clearly false because it's still one of the most popular hex and counter war games after 40 plus years. A lot of people still play it and follow it. But there's a lot of people out there that just think they don't even want to try to approach it. And I was going to make a video on how to remove their fears of approaching ASL. I think that might be a good discussion to have with some supporting evidence of why it's not that much different than a lot of war games out there as far as the required content to learn to actually play the game, as opposed to the Chrome, as we like to call it, that's just add-on that you read when you need to read it, or not at all. You could choose not to play with vehicles if you wanted to, right? So I thought that might be a good discussion to do down the road between the three of us, instead of me trying to do a series of videos, because I've been thinking about it for 6 months and I still haven't done it. So maybe we could just do it and talk about it.
Yeah, that's legit.
Yeah, that sounds good.
So unless there's any other ideas, I didn't see any from chat other than the Forgotten War review. Maybe we'll go with that next time in 2 weeks or so.
I think we need to change Scott's avatar to a cow.
Yeah.
The dead cow.
The dead cow, live cow, whatever. Some cow action.
Wardrobe, thanks for stopping in. Thank you. What David said. David said, I would offer that ASL is vastly different from other games, which is why we all love it. So it's not accessible, but it is vastly different. Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's not the most accessible, but I don't think it's inaccessible as a lot of people believe that don't really give it a try. They just think it's this monster that, and I don't believe
Well,
that.
it's just, yeah. It all depends on how big of a jump you want to take, right?
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I went to GMT Games at the warehouse locally. Luckily, I'm local here, and anytime I discuss or listen to conversations that people have about ASL, the first thing they mention is the thickness of the rule book, and they can't overcome that fear. I mean, for some reason, I'm not sure why, because all ASLers point out, look, you don't even use 90% of it most of the time. So,
yeah.
And even then, you forget, half the rest of the stuff that you should use. So, I mean, it's I think it's standard stuff and a lot of the little stuff you could, you miss up on. But that's just like any game, right? I mean, oh crap, I forgot to use my supply in this operational level game or some crap like that. So,
yep.
Well, I think there's two things. There's like learning to play ASL, and then there's mastering ASL. Learning to play ASL is not all that tough, but mastering it takes a pretty big.
Amy.
Oh yeah, we're kind of.
She wants to moderate that one so bad. I know she does.
We're putting the cart in front of the horse, I guess, right? That's the saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like David. I think you should put a poll up for the next 2 weeks, Neil, about voting on Scott's avatar. And then all the people can vote for what Scott's avatar is going to be next time.
Where would I put the poll? I could put the poll in
on your channel.
YouTube community section. I can do polls there. Yeah, I'll put a poll up, and you can vote on Scott's avatar for the next stream.
Yep.
Good idea, David. But yeah, Amy's
RuPaul.
right. Amy's
Ow.
right.
Moo. Moo.
Moo. All right, let's wrap. Let's wrap it up.
Wrap it up.
We're getting loopy again, like we did last time, I think. Okay,
I'm
that's
just
it
waking
for-
up.
Yeah, you're like, man, I just woke up.
Literally, I was sleeping until 6.
Jeez. I was wondering if you're gonna even come on. I'm like, where's Stu? Okay, let's wrap it up. Thanks for everybody tuning in to Friday Night Tactical. This was number 4. We're gonna do number 5 probably in 2 weeks, and we'll talk about demystifying ASL and why it is not as inapproachable as you think it is. It is actually approachable. So if you know anyone who wants to get into ASL who's afraid to get into ASL, have them tune in next 2 weeks from tonight, and we'll talk about it. All right. Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Scott. Thanks, Stu. Thanks, chat.
Thank you.
Yep. And we'll see you next Friday.
Excellent.
Ciao.